The massive meeting hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal canyon. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the floating seats that hung in perfect circles around the central speaking platform. Captain Lee Do-yun stood. At the edge of the human section, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the proceedings unfold. The air buzzed with tension. Every species present knew why they were here today. For the past 50 years, humanity had been the newcomers to galactic society. They had arrived with modest ships, basic technology, and polite requests for peaceful trade. Most of the older civilizations had barely noticed them. That was about to change. Emperor Gextor of the Vorthak Empire rose from his throne-like seat. His massive form cast shadows across the platform as his four arms gestured dramatically. The Vorthak had ruled their corner of the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and Gextor never let anyone forget it. "Fellow beings of the Council," his voice boomed through the translation systems, "we gather today to address a growing concern. The humans have expanded too quickly. They have settled too many worlds. They have grown too comfortable in our space," murmurs rippled through the assembly. Captain Do-yun kept his face blank, but inside, his heart began to race. This was not going the way Ambassador Park Min-hee had hoped when they came here. Fleet Commander Zilthra of the Kelthran Collective stood next. Her blue-scaled face showed no emotion as she spoke. "Our scans show human military vessels in 17. Different systems. Their technology may be primitive, but their numbers grow each year. We cannot allow this expansion to continue unchecked." Ambassador Park Min-hee stepped forward from the human delegation. She was a small woman compared to most beings in the chamber, but she carried herself with dignity. "Honored council members," she began, "humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence. Our ships are defensive in nature. We have never attacked another species or claimed territory by force. Yet," growled War Master Ketron, Gextor's military commander. His scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. "You speak of peace while building more ships each year. How long before your peaceful expansion threatens our borders?" Captain Do-yun watched as other species began to nod in agreement. The Zalani Confederation, the Morphic States, even some of the smaller neutral powers seemed to be siding with the major empires. Humanity's 50 years of careful diplomacy were crumbling before his eyes. Emperor Gextor raised one of his massive hands for silence. "The Council has reached a decision. Humanity will surrender all military vessels to Council custody within 72 standard hours. All human colonies beyond the Sol system will be evacuated. Humanity will return to their home system and remain there under Council supervision." The words hit the human delegation like a physical blow. Ambassador Park's face went pale. "Captain," Do-hyun felt his stomach drop. Around the chamber, representatives from hundreds of species watched in silence. Some looked uncomfortable with the harsh terms, but none spoke up to object. "This is unreasonable," Ambassador Park said, her voice steady despite the shock. "Humanity has committed no crimes. We have broken no laws. We have honored every treaty and agreement." "You exist," Fleet Commander Zilthra replied coldly. "That is enough. Your species grows too fast and spreads too quickly. History shows us what happens when young, aggressive species are left unchecked." "We are not aggressive," Park protested. "All young species say that," War Master Ketron laughed. "Until they become strong enough to take what they want. We will not make that mistake again." Captain Do-yun stepped forward, his hand moving instinctively toward his communicator. Admiral Kim Jae-won needed to know about this immediately, but he stopped when Emperor Gextor's red eyes fixed on him. "Captain Do-hyun, is it not?" the Emperor said. "You command one of humanity's most advanced vessels. Tell us, what is your ship's armament?" Do-hyun straightened. "Standard defensive systems, Your Imperial Majesty. Shield generators, point defense, arrays, and light plasma cannons suitable for meteor deflection and pirate deterrence." 72 hours, Gextor repeated, ignoring the specifics. That is generous for such a primitive species. Use the time wisely. Other council members began to speak, offering suggestions for the humane relocation of human populations. They discussed humanity as if they were not even in the room. Captain Do-hyun watched Ambassador Park's hands tremble slightly as she listened to plans for their species' future imprisonment. Honored Council, Park said when the discussion paused. We request a brief delay to consult with Earth's leadership. Surely such a momentous decision deserves proper consideration from all parties. You have 72 hours to comply, Emperor Gextor said flatly. Use that time however you wish. Consult, pray, prepare your people. It matters not to us. The session ended with no further discussion. As the various delegations began to file out, Captain Do-hyun moved close to Ambassador Park. Ma'am, we need to contact Admiral Kim immediately. Already working on it, she whispered back, her fingers dancing over her secure communicator. Emergency protocols are now in effect. As they walked toward the exit, Captain Do-hyun noticed how the other species looked at them. Some showed pity, others indifference. A few seemed almost apologetic, but none offered help or support. Fleet Commander Zilthra intercepted them at the doorway. A word of advice, she said quietly. Do not attempt to resist. The combined fleets of the Council number in the hundreds of thousands. Your entire military could not stand against even one of our major powers. We understand, Ambassador Park replied diplomatically. But Captain Do-hyun saw something in her eyes that contradicted her words. It was not fear or resignation. It was something else entirely. Something that reminded him of the old stories his grandfather used to tell about the family's military service. Stories that went back much further than anyone outside the family knew. As their shuttle lifted off from the council station, Do-hyun activated his encrypted communications array. This is Captain Lee Do-hyun to Seoul Command. Priority Alpha message. The Council has issued an ultimatum. Recommend immediate activation of Protocol 7. The response came back almost instantly in Admiral Kim Jae-won's calm voice. Understood, Captain. Protocol 7 is authorized. Return to Seoul immediately. And Captain? Yes, sir. It's time to wake the old ghosts. Do-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of service, he had never heard those words used outside of theoretical discussions. Now, as their small ship accelerated toward the edge of Council space, he wondered if the galaxy truly understood what it had just unleashed. Behind them, massive Council fleets were already beginning to mobilize, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that humanity's apparent retreat was actually the beginning of something the galaxy had not seen for over 2,000 years. The 72-hour countdown had begun. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, lights began to flicker where no lights should exist. Captain Kang Woo-bin stood in what appeared to be solid rock, watching as ancient systems came online for the first time in decades. The holographic disguise that had hidden the massive shipyard slowly faded away, revealing metal corridors that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Reactor 7 is online, reported Lieutenant Han So-young from her station. Reactor 8 responding. All primary systems showing green. Captain Kang nodded, his weathered face reflecting the glow of control panels that had waited in silence for over 50 years. Around him, dozens of technicians worked frantically to bring the ancient facility back to life. This was just one of 17 hidden shipyards scattered throughout the Sol system, each one containing secrets that could change the galaxy forever. Fleet Admiral Cho Yuna's voice crackled over the communications array. All stations, this is Command. Protocol 7 is now fully active. Begin revival procedures for all vessels immediately. In the main hangar, something impossible was happening. What looked like empty space began to shimmer and distort. Slowly, like a mountain rising from the sea, the massive bulk of the Eternal Vigil became visible. The dreadnought was over 15 kilometers long, its hull black as the void between stars. Ancient symbols covered its surface, writing in a human language that predated most current galactic civilizations. Dr. Shin Yunji ran her hands over the ship's data console, tears streaming down her face. She had spent her entire career studying these vessels, but seeing them wake up never lost its power to move her. "The old girl's responding beautifully," she whispered. "Fusion cores are stable. Gravitational systems are coming online. She remembers everything." Captain Kang walked over to join her. "Doctor, how long since anyone besides you and the other keepers have seen these ships?" 53 years, she replied. "When we first made contact with the Galactic Council, we decided to keep the real fleet hidden. Better to let them think we were young and weak than to remind the galaxy of what we used to be." The story was one that only a few thousand humans knew. 3,000 years ago, humanity had not been the small, peaceful species that the current galaxy knew. They had been conquerors. The human empire had stretched across over 1,000 star systems. Their technology advanced beyond anything the current galactic powers possessed. But with great power had come great destruction. Human weapons had been capable of destroying entire star systems. Their wars had left dead worlds scattered across the galaxy. Planets that should have been green and alive were now nothing but radioactive rocks, victims of humanity's ancient rage. The final war had been the worst. Humans fighting humans, with weapons that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. Entire star systems had been erased from existence. The survivors, horrified by what their species had become, made a choice that no other galactic empire had ever made. They chose to forget. The human survivors destroyed their war machines, abandoned their conquests, and retreated to a single, unremarkable star system. For 2,000 years, they lived in self-imposed exile, slowly rebuilding their civilization but keeping their true capabilities hidden. When they finally revealed themselves to the galaxy 50 years ago, they did so with deliberately primitive ships and peaceful intentions. But they had never stopped maintaining the old fleet. In Shipyard Delta, hidden inside what appeared to be a normal asteroid, the battlecruiser Iron Covenant stretched its ancient bulk. Captain Nam Sung-ho walked through corridors that had not seen footsteps in decades, breathing air that had been recycled by systems older than most civilizations. "Status report," he called out to his crew. "Main weapons are charging," reported his tactical officer. "Neutron cannons will be ready in 6 hours. Gravitic torpedoes are loaded and armed. Point defense systems are already active." Captain Nam stopped at a viewport and looked out at the hidden fleet. Hundreds of ships floated in the vast underground hangar, each one a relic of humanity's forgotten empire. Some were larger than entire space stations. Others were sleek and deadly, built for speed and stealth. All of them carried weapons that the current galaxy had never seen. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving activation codes from all 17 shipyards. The entire Ghost Fleet is waking up." On the bridge of the command ship, Memory of Earth, Fleet Admiral Cho Yuna watched as status reports flooded in from across the Sol system. Hidden bases in the Kuiper Belt were reporting ready. Facilities buried under the ice of Europa were bringing ancient weapons online. Even the moon had secrets, with massive ships hidden in caverns beneath its surface. "Admiral," her aide Captain Lee Sungmin reported, "we have confirmation from all facilities. Total count is 847 vessels of all classes. The last testament reports minor issues with her primary reactor, but expects to be fully operational within 12 hours. Admiral Cho closed her eyes for a moment. She was the great-granddaughter of one of the original keepers, raised from birth to maintain these secrets. Her family had guarded this knowledge for generations, waiting for the day when humanity might need its true strength again. "Signal all ships," she commanded. "This is Admiral Cho Yuna, speaking with the authority of the Council of Keepers. For 50 years, we have maintained the peaceful facade. We have allowed the galaxy to see us as young and harmless. That time is over. Throughout the Sol system, ancient vessels began to move. Ships that had slept in hidden berths for decades started their engines and prepared for war. The Promise Keeper, a battle carrier larger than most space stations, slowly maneuvered out of its asteroid hideout. The Enduring Dawn, its hull covered in the scars of battles fought before most current species had achieved spaceflight, powered up weapons that could crack planets. Dr. Shin Yunji stood in the observation deck of the Memory of Earth, watching as the Ghost Fleet assembled. "Do you think we're making the right choice?" she asked Admiral Cho. "The Council gave us no choice," the Admiral replied. "They want to imprison our entire species because they fear what we might become. They don't realize what we already were. But these ships, this technology, when the galaxy sees what we've been hiding, everything will change." Admiral Cho nodded grimly. "Yes, it will. The question is whether we can control that change or whether history will repeat itself." In the depths of space, the ancient human fleet continued to wake up. Ships that had once conquered stars prepared to defend their descendants. The galaxy had demanded humanity surrender within 72 hours, thinking they faced a young species with primitive weapons. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Captain Kang Wubin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, looking out at the assembled fleet. Ancient ships, each one carrying the weight of forgotten history, hung in space like sleeping giants finally opening their eyes. "Send the message to all vessels," Admiral Cho's voice came over the communications array. "Operation Revelation is now active. After 2,000 years of hiding, it's time to remind the galaxy why they once feared the darkness between stars." The countdown continued. 68 hours remained until the Council's deadline. But humanity was no longer counting down to surrender. They were counting down to revelation. The combined fleet of the Galactic Council moved through space like a metal storm. Over 10,000 ships from dozens of different species formed a massive armada that stretched across light years. At its head flew the Vorthak Imperial Dreadnought, conquest of ages, its massive bulk bristling with weapons that had conquered entire star systems. War Master Ketron stood on the bridge, his scarred face twisted into a grin of anticipation. "Long-range sensors are detecting human vessels," his tactical officer reported. "Approximately 200 ships holding position near the edge of their territory." 200, Ketron laughed. "They barely have enough ships to mount a proper defense. This will be over before it begins." Beside him, Fleet Commander Zilthra of the Kelthran Collective studied the tactical displays with her usual cold precision. "Their ships are the same class we've observed for 50 years. Basic shield generators, primitive weapon systems. Nothing that should pose a threat to our forces. Still," she continued, "we should be cautious. Desperate species sometimes fight harder than expected." Ketron dismissed her concerns with a wave of his massive hand. "Desperate or not, they cannot overcome such overwhelming numbers. Signal all vessels to move into attack formation. We'll surround their pitiful fleet and demand surrender. When they refuse, we'll make an example of them that the galaxy will remember for centuries." 20 light minutes away, Captain Nam Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the Iron Covenant, watching the Council fleet approach on his tactical screens. The ancient battlecruiser hung in space alongside what appeared to be a modest human defense force. To enemy sensors, they would look like any other human ships. Small, lightly armed vessels suitable only for basic patrol duties. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet." "Put it through," Captain Nam replied, his weathered face showing no emotion. War Master Ketron's image appeared on the main screen, his arms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. "Human vessels, you are vastly outnumbered. Surrender immediately, and your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions. Resist, and we will show no mercy." Captain Nam looked at the alien, commander for a long moment before responding. His voice was calm, almost gentle. War Master Ketron, you mistake restraint for weakness. You confuse mercy for inability. Today, you learn the difference. Ketron's face darkened with rage. You dare mock me with your pathetic little fleet? We have 10,000 ships. You have barely 200. Numbers, Captain Nam said quietly, are not everything. The transmission ended. Around the Iron Covenant, human ships began to spread out into what looked like a desperate defensive formation. To the Council fleet, it appeared that humanity was preparing for a hopeless last stand. They were wrong. Signal the Ghost Fleet, Captain Nam commanded. All ships, prepare to decloak on my mark. Lieutenant Bei Jiyung, monitoring the tactical situation from the memory of Earth, watched as the Council forces moved to surround the visible human ships. Admiral, she reported to Fleet Admiral Cho Yuna, enemy vessels are taking position. They're spreading out to encircle our forward units. Perfect, Admiral Cho replied. They're doing exactly what we hoped. Signal all hidden vessels. Maintain stealth until I give the word. The Council fleet began its attack with overwhelming confidence. Thousands of energy beams and missile salvos streaked toward the human ships, enough firepower to destroy a small planet. But as the weapons struck human shields, something impossible happened. The shields held. Not only did they hold, they barely seemed affected by the massive barrage. Shield readings on human ships dropped only slightly, while their hulls showed. No damage at all. What? Ketron stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. How are their shields so strong? Our sensors showed primitive technology. Sir, his weapons officer reported nervously, their shield harmonics don't match anything in our databases. The energy patterns are completely unknown. Fleet Commander Zilthra studied her own readings with growing alarm. These power signatures, they're impossible. No ship that size should be able to generate that much energy. Captain Nam Sung-ho smiled grimly as he watched the Council fleet's confusion. You've had 50 years to study our ships, he murmured to himself. Did you never wonder why we always seemed to have exactly the technology we needed and nothing more? Did you never ask yourselves what we might be hiding? All ships, he broadcast to the human fleet, return fire. The response was devastating. Energy beams that cut through Council shields like paper, missiles that seemed to bend space around them, making them impossible to intercept, weapons that the galaxy had not seen for thousands of years, wielded by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive. In the first exchange, over 100 Council ships simply ceased to exist. They didn't explode dramatically or break apart slowly. They were there one moment and gone the next, reduced to expanding clouds of atoms by weapons that operated on principles the current galaxy had forgotten. Impossible! Ketron roared. Where did they get such weapons? His answer came in the form of the largest ship he had ever seen. The Eternal Vigil dropped out of stealth drive directly above the Council formation. 15 kilometers of black metal and ancient fury, its hull covered in symbols from humanity's forgotten empire. The massive dreadnought dwarfed everything around it, casting shadows over ships that had seemed large moments before. But the Eternal Vigil was not alone. All around the Council fleet, space began to ripple and distort as stealth fields collapsed. Hundreds of massive ships appeared from nothing, each one larger than the biggest Council vessels. Ancient human warships, their hulls bearing the scars of battles fought before most current civilizations had even developed writing. The Last Testament, a battle carrier so large it had its own artificial gravity well. The Promise Keeper, its weapons arrays glowing with contained energy that could split atoms. The Enduring Dawn, moving with impossible grace despite its enormous size. In moments, the tactical situation reversed completely. The Council fleet found itself surrounded by human vessels that shouldn't exist, facing technology that predated their own civilizations, outnumbered by an enemy they had thought was weak and primitive. Captain O. Taman, commanding a squadron of human stealth destroyers, watched as panic spread through the council ranks. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "enemy ships are breaking formation. Some are trying to retreat, others are firing at random targets." "Let them run," Taman replied. "We're not here to slaughter them. We're here to teach them." Fleet Commander Zilthra, her Kelthran composure finally shattered, sent a desperate transmission back to the council. "Emergency protocols. Send everything. Every ship, every fleet, every reserve unit. We need reinforcements now." Her message was intercepted by the memory of Earth. Admiral Cho Yuna listened to the panic in the alien commander's voice and felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. "Lieutenant Bay," she said, "signal all ships to cease fire. Let the survivors retreat." "Ma'am, they've learned enough for now. Let them go back and tell their leaders what they've seen. The real lesson is just beginning." As council ships fled, in disorder, leaving behind the wreckage of what had been one of their most powerful fleets, War Master Ketron stared at the human vessels in stunned silence. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a message from the human flagship." Admiral Cho Yuna's image appeared on his screen. She was smaller than most species' military leaders, but her eyes held the weight of millennia. "War Master," she said calmly, "return to the council. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that humanity is not the young species they believed us to be. Tell them that their 72-hour ultimatum has been declined." The transmission ended, leaving Ketron alone with the impossible sight of human ships that shouldn't exist, wielding power that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew. The first battle was over, but the real war for the galaxy's future was just beginning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from over 300 species filled the great chamber, their voices raised in panic, confusion, and fear. At the center of it all sat Emperor Gextor, his massive form hunched over ancient data tablets that his researchers had dragged from the deepest archives. "The reports cannot be accurate," declared Prime Minister Veltara of the Zalani Confederation. "No species possesses technology capable of such destruction. Our combined fleet was annihilated by a force we estimated at 200 primitive vessels." 800 ships, corrected Fleet Commander Zilthra, her voice hollow with shock. "When they revealed their true numbers, we counted over 800 vessels, each one larger and more advanced than anything in our fleets." War Master Ketron stood slowly, his scarred face bearing fresh wounds from the battle. "I have served in 100 campaigns across 50 years. I have seen the weapons of every major power in this galaxy. What the humans used, it was beyond our understanding. They didn't just defeat us. They erased our ships from existence." Emperor Gextor raised one of his massive hands for silence. "Grand Historian Morgeth, read the archives. Tell the council what you have found." An ancient being shuffled forward, his tentacles wrapped around data crystals that glowed with age. Grand Historian Morgeth had served the council for over 400 years, maintaining records that stretched back millennia. "Honored council," his voice quavered with fear, "I have found references to a species known as the Void Wanderers. They appeared in our oldest records from the time before the great civilizations. The descriptions match what we witness today." He activated a holographic display that showed ancient star charts. Dead systems were marked in red, scattered across what had once been thriving regions of the galaxy. 3,000 years ago, a human empire controlled over 1,000 star systems. They possessed weapons that could extinguish suns, technology that could turn planets into projectiles, ships that were larger than our space stations. They fought wars that left entire sectors uninhabitable. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Yoon Sung-min of the human archaeological vessel Deep Memory had been monitoring Council communications, and now he activated a galaxy-wide broadcast from his hidden position. Honored species of the galaxy, his voice carried across thousands of worlds, you seek to understand what you have awakened. Let me show you the truth. Data began flooding every communication network in known space. Archaeological evidence, battle site analysis, and stellar cartography that painted a picture of humanity's forgotten empire. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Dr. Han Myung, working alongside Captain Yoon, highlighted key findings. Every major natural disaster in galactic history bears the signature of ancient human weapons. The Kepler Nebula? That was once a thriving star system until human gravitational weapons destabilized the primary star. The broken worlds of Sector 7? Those planets were cracked apart by human planet killers 3 millennia ago. The data showed system after system where human technology had left its mark. Asteroid belts that were too regular, too organized to be natural, the remains of enemy fleets ground to dust by human weapons, neutron stars that pulsed in mathematical sequences, gravitational anomalies created by weapons fired in anger eons. On the Vorthak homeworld, Emperor Gextor stared at readings from his planet's own archaeological sites. "The scars of heaven," he whispered. The massive canyons that crossed his world's northern continent had been attributed to ancient geological activity. Now he realized they were the result of human bombardment from space, weapons that had carved permanent wounds in the planet's surface. Grand Admiral Lim Dae-hoon, Supreme Commander of humanity's true military forces, stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, displays showed the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Not just the ships that had revealed themselves, but hundreds of others still hidden in bases the galaxy had never suspected. "Sir," reported his aide, "long range. Sensors are detecting massive fleet movements. Every major power is mobilizing their reserves. The Kelthran Collective has activated their siege fleets. The Morphic states are bringing their deep space battle groups online. They're scared," Admiral Lim said simply. "They've realized that everything they thought they knew was wrong. Now they're preparing for a war they can't win." In hidden bases throughout the galaxy, more human ships began to stir, not just in the Sol system, but in asteroid fields and rogue planets that had been secretly inhabited for millennia. Human civilization had never truly been confined to one star system. They had maintained hidden outposts, research stations, and military bases across hundreds of worlds. Captain Song Hyemi, commanding the ancient vessel, the First Exile, brought her ship online in a base hidden within what appeared to be a normal asteroid field. The ship was older than any other in the human fleet, a relic from the final days of the human empire. "Ma'am," her navigation officer reported, "we're receiving activation codes from Earth Command. All Ghost protocols are now active." Captain Song nodded grimly. The First Exile had been the first human ship to retreat from the Empire's former territory 3,000 years ago. It had been built to remember, to preserve the knowledge of what humanity had been and what they had chosen to abandon. "Signal. All hidden bases," she commanded. "Begin emergence protocols. The time for secrets is over." Across the galaxy, human installations began to reveal themselves, mining colonies that were actually military bases, research stations that housed weapons laboratories. Even some asteroids began to unfold, revealing themselves to be massive, camouflaged ships that had waited in silence for millennia. The Galactic Council's panic deepened as they realized the scope of humanity's deception. This wasn't just a species with hidden ships. This was a civilization that had been living among them for millennia, maintaining a vast network of secret bases and advanced technology while pretending to be primitive newcomers. Fleet Commander Zilthra, studying the flood of new data, made a chilling discovery. "The humans never retreated completely," she reported to the Emergency Council session. They've been here all along. Hidden bases on worlds we've known for centuries, installations, in systems we thought were empty. They've been watching us, studying us, preparing for this day. Dr. Han Myung continued her broadcast, her voice carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. The human empire didn't fall to external conquest. It chose to end itself. The survivors were horrified by their own power, disgusted by the destruction they had caused. They abandoned their conquests, destroyed their war machines, and retreated to a single system. But they never forgot how to build them again. The archaeological evidence was undeniable. Human technology had advanced far beyond what the current galaxy possessed, then been deliberately abandoned. Weapons capable of cracking planets had been dismantled. Ships that could move faster than light itself had been mothballed. An entire galactic empire had chosen exile over dominion. Emperor Gextor, surrounded by the wreckage of his certainty, finally understood what his empire faced. "They could have ruled us all," he said quietly. "For 50 years they could have conquered every one of us. Instead, they chose to hide. Until we forced their hand," War Master Ketron added, his voice heavy with the weight of his mistake. Captain Yoon Sungmin ended his broadcast with words that would echo across the galaxy. "We withdrew not from weakness, but from horror at our own strength. We chose peace over dominion, silence over supremacy. You have forced us to remember what we tried to forget." As the truth spread across countless worlds, species that had ruled space for millennia began to realize they had been living beside the remnants of an empire that had once made stars tremble. The galaxy's balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been revealed to be an illusion all along. The ancient ghosts of humanity's empire were awake, and they brought with them the weight of 3,000 years of hidden preparation. The space around Earth had become a graveyard of metal and light. Over 1 million ships filled the void between the inner planets, representing every major civilization in the galaxy. The combined might of hundreds of species hung in the darkness, their weapons trained on humanity's home system. But facing them was something the galaxy had not seen for 3,000 years. The complete military might of humanity's ancient empire, awakened and ready for war. Supreme Admiral Park Jeon-ho stood on the bridge of the Memory of Ages, humanity's oldest and most powerful vessel. The massive ship dwarfed everything around it, its hull bearing scars from battles fought when most current civilizations were still discovering fire. Around him, displays showed the positions of both fleets in perfect detail. "Final count, Admiral," reported his tactical officer. 1,200,000 enemy vessels. Every major power, every minor faction, every species that can put a ship in space. They've called in every favor, activated every treaty, united every enemy. And our forces? 863 vessels of the line, plus support craft. We're outnumbered nearly 1,500 to 1. Admiral Park nodded calmly. The numbers didn't frighten him. His ancestors had faced worse odds and won. But this wasn't about winning a battle. This was about choosing what humanity would become. Emperor Gextor's massive form filled the main communication screen as his flagship Final Judgment took position at the head of the Allied fleet. "Humans." His voice boomed across all frequencies. "You are surrounded. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Continue this deception, and we will wipe your species from the galaxy." "Deception?" Admiral Park's voice was calm, almost gentle. "There has been no deception, Emperor. We told you exactly what we were, a species that wanted only peace. You chose not to believe us." Fleet Commander Zilthra appeared on a secondary screen, her blue-scaled face hard with determination. "Your ancient empire conquered and destroyed. You are a threat to every living being in this galaxy. We cannot allow you to exist unchecked." "Cannot?" Admiral Park smiled sadly. "You speak as if you have a choice in the matter." Instead of ordering an attack, Admiral Park did something that shocked both fleets. He activated a galaxy-wide broadcast and began transmitting the complete historical archives of humanity's ancient empire. Not propaganda or selective data, but the raw, unfiltered truth of what humanity had been. The records showed everything. The rise of the human empire from a single world to a 1,000-system dominion. The incredible advances in science and technology that had made humans the most powerful species the galaxy had ever seen. The wars that had followed, growing more terrible with each passing century. Captain Song Hyemi, commanding the First Exile, watched as the historical data streamed across the galaxy. Her ship was the keeper of humanity's darkest memories, the repository of knowledge about what their species had once become. "Admiral," she reported, "the archives are being received on every inhabited world. The complete record of the stellar wars, the Planet Killer campaign, the final battle at the Nexus of Infinity. The final battle. The moment when humanity had nearly broken the galaxy itself. The records showed human fleets armed with weapons that could unmake the fundamental forces of reality. Star killers that could cause suns to collapse into black holes. Reality bombs that could erase entire regions of space-time. Planet movers that could hurl worlds at their enemies like cosmic projectiles." The final battle had been fought between human factions, brother against sister, each side armed with the power of gods. Entire star systems had been wiped from existence. The fabric of space itself had been damaged, creating wounds in reality that still existed 3,000 years later. Ambassador Lee Soo-young, humanity's final negotiator, had remained hidden until this moment. Now she stepped forward, her small form contrasting sharply with the massive alien commanders on the screens. "Do you see?" she asked quietly. "Do you understand why we chose exile? We had weapons that could destroy galaxies. We had the power to reshape reality itself, and we used that power to fight each other." The historical records continued to stream across space. They showed the aftermath of humanity's final war. Survivors standing among the wreckage of their civilization, horrified by what they had become. The decision to abandon everything, to retreat to a single world and hide from their own terrible potential. "We could have ruled you all," Admiral Park said, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. "When we first made contact 50 years ago, we could have conquered every one of your worlds in a matter of days. Instead, we chose to pretend we were weak. We chose to let you think you were safe." Emperor Gextor's 4 arms trembled with rage and fear. "Then why reveal yourselves now? Why threaten us with this ancient power?" "Because you gave us no choice," Admiral Park replied simply. "You demanded our surrender, our extinction. You forced us to choose between hiding and survival." Captain Kang Wubin, still commanding the Eternal Vigil, watched as the alien fleets began to shift nervously. Some ships were pulling back, their commanders finally understanding the true scope of what they faced. Others moved forward, their crews driven by desperation or duty. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "enemy formations are breaking up. Some species are withdrawing their ships. Others are moving to attack positions." "Let them choose," Admiral Park commanded from the flagship. "This is not about conquest or destruction. This is about choice." The galaxy hung in the balance as species made decisions that would echo through history. Some, like the Vorthak Empire, chose to press their attack despite the overwhelming evidence of humanity's power. Others, wiser or more cautious, began to withdraw their ships from the battle zone. Fleet Commander Zilthra found herself caught between duty and survival. Her Kelthran training demanded that she follow orders and attack the human fleet. But her tactical analysis showed that such an attack would be suicide for every ship involved. "Admiral Park," she transmitted on a private channel, "what assurance can you give that humanity will not use this power to conquer us all?" "The same assurance we have given for 3,000 years, he replied. "Our choice to remain hidden, our decision to live in exile rather than rule, our willingness to endure your threats rather than respond with our full strength. But now that the secret is revealed, Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew of the Memory of Ages waited for his decision. This was the moment that would define humanity's future and the galaxy's. Now we make a new choice, he said finally. The same choice our ancestors made, but openly this time. We choose to be guardians rather than conquerors. We choose to protect rather than rule. The proposal that followed would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity would reveal the locations of their hidden weapons, their reality-bending technologies, their planet-killing devices. But instead of using them for conquest, they would serve as guardians, preventing any species from ever again achieving the level of destructive power that had nearly broken the galaxy. A new compact, Admiral Park broadcast to every ship, every world, every listening ear in the galaxy. We will be the watchers in the darkness, the guardians against the kind of power that once consumed us. We will ensure that no species, including ourselves, ever again threatens the stability of reality itself. Some species accepted immediately, others required more convincing. The Vorthak Empire, led by the proud Emperor Gextor, refused the terms and launched their attack. It lasted exactly 17 seconds. Human ships moved with impossible grace, their weapons precisely targeting enemy vessels without destroying them. Instead of death rays and reality bombs, they used weapons designed to disable and capture. The entire Vorthak attack fleet found itself surrounded by boarding pods and held in energy nets that they could not break. This is what restraint looks like, Admiral Park announced as the defeated Vorthak ships were gently towed back to their starting positions. This is what power looks like when it chooses mercy over destruction. Emperor Gextor, his flagship, disabled but his crew unharmed, stared at the human vessels in stunned silence. "You could have destroyed us all," he whispered. "Yes," Admiral Park replied simply. "We chose not to." The new age began not with conquest or surrender, but with choice. The galaxy would be protected by guardians who had learned the ultimate lesson, that the greatest strength was sometimes the wisdom to remain hidden, and the greatest victory was sometimes choosing not to fight at all. Humanity emerged from 3,000 years of exile not as conquerors, but as protectors of the peace they had learned to value above all else. The ancient ships would patrol the void once more, but this time they carried hope instead of destruction. The age of hidden humans was over. The age of reluctant guardians had begun.